You won't believe what happened when my little lake cabin, my peaceful getaway, was suddenly torn down by the HOA. One day it was there, nestled by the water, and the next, bulldozers showed up with no warning. At first, I was shocked and furious, wondering how they could just decide to destroy something that meant so much to me. But then things got even stranger. It turned out that I had unknowingly signed off on every single land permit in the entire county. Yes, every one of them. How could that be possible? And what does it mean for my cabin, the HOA, and the community as a whole? This isn't just a story about a cabin being taken away. It's about power, control, and secrets hidden behind the quiet rules of a small town. As I dig deeper, I realize there's a lot more at stake than just my property. The people involved, the decisions made, and the unexpected connections between us all are about to blow the lid off this whole situation. But I can't tell you everything just yet. The bigger picture is still unfolding, and some of what I found might shock you as much as it shocked me. Stick around, because this story is just getting started, and you won't want to miss what happens next. So, let me take you back to how all this started. That lake cabin wasn't just some weekend spot. It was a place my family built over years, a hidden retreat where memories were made. I always thought the HOA was just a background thing, a set of rules we all quietly followed to keep the neighborhood tidy. But after the demolition, I started asking questions. How did they have the power to tear down a building without proper notice? And why didn't anyone warn me? Then came the shocker. I found out I had signed off on every land permit in the county. It wasn't some accident or a random mistake. Somehow, my name was tied to approvals for construction, demolitions, and zoning changes everywhere. I had no memory of agreeing to this, no clue how it happened. Was someone using my signature without me knowing? Or was there a bigger scheme at play? I reached out to people in the county office, digging through records, trying to figure out how my name ended up on so many documents. Every answer seemed to open more questions. Why was the HOA so quick to act against my cabin when they were supposed to enforce community standards fairly? And what connection did I have with the county permits that gave me so much influence, whether I realized it or not? Something doesn't add up, and I'm determined to find out what. But the deeper I go, the more complicated this gets, and the more I realize I'm not the only one caught in this mess. As I kept digging, I realized this wasn't just about my cabin or some mix-up with paperwork. There were layers to this that nobody was talking about. The HOA, which I once thought was just a group of neighbors trying to keep things orderly, suddenly looked a lot more powerful, and maybe even a little dangerous. I started hearing whispers about old rivalries and secret deals that had been made behind closed doors for years. On one hand, some people in the community said the HOA was protecting property values and keeping the lake area safe from overbuilding or unsafe structures. On the other hand, others suspected the HOA was using its power to push certain people out and control who could actually live by the lake. The fact that I'd signed off on every land permit in the county seemed to tie me to all of it, whether I liked it or not. But why me? And who had made sure my name was on those permits? I even found a few neighbors who said they'd seen strange activity, unannounced inspections, threats about fines, and even some legal battles no one knew much about. One guy told me he had his own cabin plans shut down by the HOA without explanation, and another neighbor hinted that the county officials and HOA board members might be connected in ways that weren't entirely legal. This wasn't just a fight over one cabin anymore. It was about power, control, and a tangled web of permits, signatures, and backroom deals. Every step I took seemed to pull me deeper into something bigger than I ever imagined. And now, the question isn't just whether I can get my cabin back, it's whether I can even trust anyone in this town. But what happens next? Well, that part of the story is still unfolding, and it's going to get even more complicated before it gets clearer. The deeper I dug, the more I realized I was walking into a storm I hadn't prepared for. Every conversation seemed to uncover new secrets, emails hidden from public view, documents mysteriously altered, and meetings held behind locked doors where decisions were made without anyone else knowing. It felt like the whole county, the HOA, and some powerful people were connected in a way that kept me from seeing the full picture. I started getting calls, strange, anonymous voices warning me to stop asking questions. My neighbors, who once greeted me warmly, suddenly avoided me like I was a troublemaker. Even the local officials I tried to trust started giving me vague answers or outright ignoring me. It was as if the more I tried to fight for my cabin, the more I was pushing against an invisible wall. And then, just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, I found something that changed everything. A document showing that my signature wasn't just on the permits. It was the key to a much bigger plan to control the entire county's land development. Suddenly, my cabin wasn't just a victim. It was part of something much bigger, something no one wanted me to expose. The tension was building, and I knew I was close to something huge. But with every step forward, the risks grew. Who could I trust? What would happen if I pushed too hard? The next move could change everything, or it could destroy everything I've been fighting for. And that's where this story stands right now, on the edge of a moment that could shake this entire community to its core. Just when I thought I had uncovered all the twisted layers of this mess, something new hit me like a thunderbolt. I found out the HOA wasn't acting alone. They had a secret partnership with a major real estate developer eyeing the lakefront for a massive project. This wasn't just about controlling who builds what. It was about pushing people like me out to clear the way for something much bigger and far more profitable. Suddenly, the cabin wasn't just a casualty of HOA rules. It was standing right in the path of a development plan that could change the entire county forever. The shocking part: that developer had quietly bought up key pieces of land nearby, and several county officials I'd been trying to reach had connections to the company. The more I learned, the clearer it became that my signature on all those land permits wasn't just a coincidence. It was part of a bigger scheme to make the approvals look official and keep everything moving smoothly behind the scenes. If I wanted to save my cabin or even expose this, I'd have to go up against not just the HOA, but a powerful network that didn't want me poking around. And just when I was figuring all this out, I got a call from someone who claimed they had proof that could blow this whole thing wide open. But they wanted to meet in secret, and fast. Now the stakes are higher than ever, and every move I make feels riskier. What happens next could either bring justice or bury the truth forever. The night I agreed to meet the mysterious caller, my heart was pounding like never before. I knew this could be the moment everything changed, or everything came crashing down. We met in a quiet corner of a small diner, far from prying eyes. They handed me a folder thick with documents, emails, contracts, and recordings that exposed the entire scheme, how the HOA, the developer, and even some county officials had been working together to seize control of the lakefront, using my signature as a way to legitimize their moves without anyone suspecting a thing. Armed with this proof, I went public, sharing everything with neighbors and local reporters. The community finally saw the truth behind the demolition of my cabin and the unfair power play by the HOA and their partners. Pressure mounted fast. The county launched an investigation, and the developer's plans were put on hold. It felt like justice was finally on its way, and my cabin, my sanctuary, was saved. But just when I thought it was over, I received an email from an unknown sender. It contained a single photo, my own signature on a permit I never signed, dated years before I even moved here. Someone had been using my identity long before the cabin was torn down. The question hit me hard. If I wasn't the one signing those permits, then who was behind this all along? The fight wasn't over. It had only just begun. Finding out someone had been using my identity for years was both terrifying and freeing. It explained so much. Why my name was on permits I never signed, and how the HOA had so much control. I worked with the county and the police to trace the fraud, and after months of investigation, they caught the person behind it, a former county employee who had been abusing their position for personal gain. With the truth out, the HOA's unfair actions lost their power, and the developer's secret plans were exposed and stopped. My lake cabin was restored, not just physically, but as a symbol of standing up against injustice. The community came together stronger, more aware of the importance of transparency and protecting each other's rights. This experience taught me how easily power can be misused and how important it is to pay attention to the details, even when everything seems normal. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this story, it's this. Don't ignore the small things and never be afraid to ask questions. Sometimes, what looks like a simple rule or a signature can hide a much bigger story, and standing up for what's yours, that's worth every challenge.